Okay, all right then. Thank you, Julie. We're gonna actually. I wanted to get your answer to this question though. What's the main contributor limiting the progress of science of all disciplines? I mean, is it science for profit? Are we butting heads with creationism? Is it, you mentioned curriculum in schools. I mean, is it all of the above? What are the key factors here?
I think that the two big ones would be science for profit and curriculum inside schools. I don't find, a lot of the alternative science that we hear, creation of churches and things like that, I don't find that a big barrier because when the truth comes out, the truth comes out, right? When you can show someone, here it is working in front of them, they either believe it or they don't. And if they don't, there's really nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, that's right.
So in science for profit, basic science, when you start off, you don't know what the outcome is going to be. When you read back in some of the literature and you figure out the experiments that they were trying to do, usually they come out with something that they had no idea was going to be the outcome. So when you mandate someone and you say, I need a smaller, faster, stronger one of these, you cut the limitations of what you're going to find out. You go looking for one thing instead of looking for what we don't know. And that's the most important stuff.
Absolutely.
And that stuff might not have a payout immediately. It might take 20 years, it might take 100 years before we figure out what that knowledge is for. But then you transform everything, right? Overnight, things can change. When the first automobile drove down the road, when the first transistor chip was made, right? That just changed how things were done. And if we don't go looking for those unknowns, we won't progress. And about the education system, in Alberta, the grade 1 to 6 curriculum was last updated in 1996.
Okay, so let's think about that for a second then. So that's, okay, first off, that blows my mind.
It's been a while.
So what's in that book then that probably shouldn't be in that book? Or obviously there's a plethora of information that should be added to that book. I mean, that's a limited text, is it not?
It is, and myself, I've only focused on the space part. I mean, that's my passion.
Fair enough, yeah.
So one thing, we know there's water on Mars. That was a question mark when I was going to school. We had no idea. Now we know for sure. We have maps of where it is. The Mir space station was still flying in 1996. And everyone's favorite topic, Pluto, was still a planet in 96.
Yeah, of course,
but now we have full color pictures of Pluto that we could put into these textbooks. So the curriculum isn't written with these specifics in mind. It's actually quite general. But without updating it, we lose out on being able to teach our kids these new things. Now I don't want to talk ill of the Calgary Board of Education. I've been to many, many classrooms, and the teachers do an excellent job. So many of the teachers take it upon themselves to become educated and to bring these new things into the classroom.
Bridge that gap a bit.
Absolutely. But we're banking on excellent teachers. And every once in a while, you might find someone that needs a help, right? You might find someone who is excellent at English, who's excellent at storytelling, who is great in these facets, but not so great on science facet, and can't do that on their own. So without that strong foundation to be able to teach our teachers, our students don't have much of a chance.
Yeah, we shouldn't be relying clearly strictly on the exemplary performers as far as educators are concerned. That's not I won't knock the CBE either, but that's a bit of a flawed system. I think about kids and I think about parents spending time on social media, and then I think about, I guess, the false knowledge that's out there. What danger is that playing as far as, people like Jenny McCarthy or Donald Trump stating how vaccinations can cause autism, for example. I mean, clearly that's an element that can hamper the progress of science.
Absolutely. Especially when it comes to politics. Because if the voters believe a subject to be true when it isn't, they're going to vote a certain way. So if all of a sudden, we take the anti-vaccination movement, that everyone believed that their children would get sick from the vaccinations and would get autism, which is not the case. If someone were to come up on a platform and say, I'm going to ban vaccinations, that would be devastating to our population. People would get sick, people would die, it would be awful.
Which is an extreme example, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so I mean, if we go that far, if we pick that up, but a lot of little things can add up over time to the same effect. So we need to be very vigilant, and we need to trust our experts, but also question them. Yeah. Right? We need to double check these things, because most of these topics came up from someone, a scientist, saying, I think this might be true. And then what the community does is they put it out into the open. So they do a peer-reviewed paper and they say, this is what I believe and this is the evidence for it. And then it's everyone's job to either validate that evidence or prove it not true. And the problem we're having is when it's proven not true, no one believes the people that are saying, no, this isn't true.
Because they must have special interest.
Yeah, and then
so it's sort of this vicious cycle then, right? Mm-hmm. That's tough. Folks, we're going to jump to another Rant Pack break. Stick with us.
Do I believe the Harper government muzzled scientists? I don't know if they muzzled scientists, but everybody gets paid somehow. If the scientist wants to keep their job and he's being paid by someone, and that someone says don't say something, you probably should shut up. You know, if you just want to make a statement and say science is better over money, quit and say it anyway. Say, here are the results. This is what we found. You're known as a whistleblower. Canada has laws to protect whistleblowers. You're not going to get EI, but you're still going to be okay. You're still going to be a scientist. You're still going to have your integrity. Everybody in power that pays somebody underneath them is going to want them to say what they want to say, unless you have a completely unbiased system. My problem is when it comes to universities and muzzling universities' results. Because you can pay a university to do a scientific study in their labs, in their research labs, but I think that's public domain because it's taxpayer funded. So if you do that with a university research lab, it should be made public knowledge no matter the result, whether you like it and you paid for it or not.
All right, there's no getting away from it. Clearly, the Rant Packs have their opinion. I'll get you to weigh in. Do you believe during the Harper administration's reign in power that there was a science gag or muzzle in place?
I do. And I've heard anecdotally, it's hard to gain evidence on something on the negative. But I've heard of people that were unable to bring their research to bear to say this is what I found out. Like I mentioned before, that's how science works. You say, here's what I find out, here's what I did to find that out, check my work. And if we can't get to that stage, if what they found out is counter to a policy, then we can't check it. I mean, it may even be false. We don't know until we rigorously check it. Yeah. So that whole process of having to send data through a ministry that does outreach to say we need to make sure that our scientists are saying the right message and talking to the right people, it should be free. People, you shouldn't have a number to say, if we have this many bushels of wheat in a year, that everyone should know that. There's no reason why that shouldn't be known, because if there's a problem, it's better we know about it now than later.
It's troublesome, though, at the same time. I mean, to play devil's advocate, I can't help but, I guess, liken it to the private sector. Whether you're a government employer or you're working in the private sector, you're paid to perform a task. And as a scientist, your task would be to do research and collect data for your boss. And essentially, that is their property. I don't know, or maybe you can tell me what you feel about it, if there is a difference between the private sector. Working for the government, you're still employed by a higher entity. Yes, it's public money, but does that give scientists the right to claim that data as their own and not have it sort of filtered through their employer?
It's a difficult answer because in a way, the government does hire these people and they are accountable in the same kind of corporate structure that any entity would be in. But the people run the government in this country, right? It is a democracy. Therefore, the
money.
the data is ours, right? This is Canadian data, so we paid for this data to happen. And if there's something going on with our forestry, with our fisheries, with our environment, with something that we might not even know. This is the bigger issue, is the unknowns. If there's somebody looking down an unknown path, and they say, don't waste your money on that, we don't know, that's the most important thing to go, look, we don't know. What is going on? What is the real story here? And if we don't look for that and make it public, we won't find answers. There might be somebody in a garage somewhere that says, oh, I have a widget to fix that. I've been doing it on my farm for 20 years. Don't worry about it. I got you covered. But until we bring that public and let people contribute, we'll have no idea. And we're in the dark.
Funding-wise, science, I mean, it's all about funding.
Yes.
It's all about the money you can secure in order to pursue your goals. I wonder if we do give scientists and researchers an open microphone and the ability to share what they find, are we going to enact a competition amongst scientists? I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball. Again, looking for your opinion. I guess the concern would be then that if your science isn't a sexy science, might you get left behind the funding ball if, you know, the loudest voices are kind of gobbling up the spotlight and the funding money?
Well, let me fall back on space again. That's where I do most of my my time.
Yeah.
So Canada, the space budget is roughly $350 million a year.
Okay.
And Canada is incredibly reliant on space. We need satellites to transfer data. We have some of the largest coastlines in the world. We monitor sea ice. We do all kinds of things that without satellite communication would be absolutely impossible. This country would fall apart. We are very, very reliant on it. And the entire budget that funds Chris Hadfield, that funds everything that we do in the Canada Arm, that funds all the space programs, all our satellite programs, is $350 million a year.
Seems small.
It's not very big at all.
No.
Next to NASA's billions, and even some, you look at even businesses now, even the downturn economy, $350 million is a big chunk of money, but it's not a lot of money. And we do a lot with that money. Now, when you do basic research, when you put a satellite up in space that can relay data back and forth and help communication among people, the economic benefit is actually huge. Mm-hmm. So if you have a forestry division that's creating maps and creating these long histories of the forest, industries can use that. All this data should be available for industries and for our economies to use to better Canada. So it may not be a sexy science, but I bet you there's somebody out there that could use that to make money with.
We're not worried about bad science as we compete for the big shiny dollars to get results. Not a concern. I mean, I guess it's something we can never really police, but those people put their careers on the line and won't be scientists.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that most people don't understand about scientists, this is their passion, right? To say that, I find it so funny that people use the word elitist in a negative fashion. You want the elitists in the front row. You want them doing the work. You want the best people doing the work.
That's sure.
So when these people give their life to this thing, and that's what they do, I don't have a reason why we shouldn't believe them in those things. And if their data checks out, if we back it up, if we look over it, if we constantly review it and it constantly checks out, then yes, if there is bad science and it turns out this person went down a path for whatever reason, it should be found out, right? And it'll be found out and there's no negative repercussion for it. That's just part of the system. A negative result is almost more important than a positive.
Real quick, what's next for you?
What's next for me?
Real quick.
I'm doing talks all over the city. I'm talking to as many people as I can about space. And I hope I'm involved with the Canadian Space Society.
Cool.
And the next opportunity to get back to Mars, I'm going to be taking it.
Awesome. Zach, great to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Folks, that's all the time we have for tonight. As always, you can get at us on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Don't be a stranger. Until next time, take care.